Hello and welcome to the Frontington and Backwoods Railway. If you've been watching this channel for a while, I hope you've enjoyed seeing the layout develop. Blood, sweat and tears have gone into it, but thankfully nothing a little static grass won't hide. However, the time has finally come to think about building something new. When I started building this layout a few years ago, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no plan. I had no experience. I had no tools. And so the layout developed fairly organically, taking shape slowly as I figured out what the next step might be. I've learnt lots along the way, including what shortcuts I can take, and discovering what shortcuts I probably shouldn't have taken. There's a lot I like about the layout. I like the countryside feel. I like my GWR locomotives. I like the ingenuity I've used to come up with money-saving solutions. I like that I can set a train running and leave it merrily going round while I do something else. I like the precision and reliability of my Gauge-Master controller. But there are also plenty of things I don't like. I don't like that all the curves are first radius. I don't like that the sidings around the station don't really make sense. I don't like the chipboard base with the polystyrene on top. I don't like the insulfrug points. I don't like that there's no convincing way to run to a schedule because it's all one big loop. A small loop. I don't like that there's no fiddle yard, so all my stock has to live somewhere on the layout. In short, it's good, but it could be better. So for a while now I've been thinking about what's next. I want to run steam, I want it to be Great Western, and I want to aim for a pre-war time period, maybe somewhere around 1938-ish. I want to run DCC, I want it to be 00 gauge, and I want to focus on passenger services with the occasional small goods train. I want it to be affordable, but I also want to do things properly. At first, I thought about having a layout that went all around the garage, giving me a double-track main line with a large station, ideally with a junction that would peel off to a branch line and a terminus station. I spent ages working on the design, simplifying the station quite a bit, and had some help from some really nice chaps on Facebook who gave advice on how to get the point work prototypical and where to put signals. But in the end, I had to abandon the idea, partly because I have other stuff that needs to be stored in the garage, and partly because it was so ambitious that it would take decades to complete it. My second idea was to focus on a simple branch line terminus station. Again, I worked on a track plan and got loads of help from folks on Facebook. I was really pleased with the end result, which gave me plenty of scope for different passenger and goods trains. But the more I sat with it, the more I realised that I would really miss being able to just set a train running and watch it pootle around. A tail chaser may not be prototypical, but it is fun to watch. I also realised I wasn't quite ready to say goodbye to Frontington and Backwoods. I've become quite attached to them, in fact. They're completely fictitious locations, of course, but they still feel like home. And that's when I decided that my next layout didn't need to be something completely new at all. What I needed was a rebuild of what I've already got. Let's take a step back and consider location for a moment. Now, I know I said Frontington and Backwoods are fictional, but it helps if they are at least plausible. Here's a picture of the west of England, where the GWR network served. I have a soft spot for South Devon, so that's where I want my layout to represent. And I don't want to try and replicate somewhere that actually exists, as I think I'd find that too restrictive. But I do want to imagine that my layout connects to this real-life network in some way. One of the great selling points to me about the Great Western Railway is its passenger traffic, shuttling holidaymakers to the seaside in beautiful shiny trains. I think about destinations like Paignton, Minehead, Weston-super-Mare, Newquay. I want to represent something like that. But because I don't want to make something that actually existed, I need to locate my railway somewhere where no railway ever actually existed, but where perhaps it could have done if things had been different. The Primrose Line was a single-track branch line that connected Kingsbridge to the main line between Exeter and Plymouth. It started here at South Brent, winding through the South Devon countryside, alongside the River Avon, passing through Avonwick, Garra Bridge, Loddiswell, and terminating at Kingsbridge. There was also an extension planned down to Salcombe, but that was never completed. Now imagine for a moment that just after Loddiswell Station there was a junction and a little branch line that followed the river just a little further. Passing Averton Gifford, Averton? Hang on a minute.
Orton Gifford.
Passing Orton Gifford, crossing the river just here, before climbing onto the headland, passing the little village of Bigbury, to terminate here, on the hill above Bigbury-on-Sea. Now, you'd be forgiven for not knowing about Bigbury-on-Sea. There's not much there. There's a little beach with a car park, and a hotel on an island, and a few holiday homes, but not a lot else. And looking at maps from the turn of the last century, there wasn't really anything there then either, other than that hotel, which was apparently the inspiration for the location of Agatha Christie's book And Then There Were None. But imagine if in some alternate reality it had been just a little more thriving, a little more busy, on the same scale as Brixham perhaps, with some shops, small industries, a harbour, just enough to warrant its own railway station. With a little imagination, this could have been Frontington-on-Sea, a seaside destination just off the GWR main line, piggybacking on the existing Primrose Line. The more I look at it, the more plausible it becomes. So, back to the layout. As a reminder, here's the track plan for the current iteration of Frontington and Backwoods. It's just under 1 metre deep and just over 2 metres long. Reimagining this layout but done properly, this is what I've ended up with. Instead of all that harsh Hornby set track geometry, we now have smooth sweeping curves. We've lost the siding at Backwoods Station, which was rather redundant anyway and hardly ever used. The track work around Frontington Station is now much better thought out, with short but functional sidings at one end and a single engine shed at the other. Unfortunately, I can't go any deeper than 1 metre without encroaching on the rest of the garage, so I'm stuck with using a couple of first radius curves at each end, but I guess I'll just have to live with that. You'll also notice that Frontington is now a terminus. Apart from that bit. It's non-scenic though, so no one will actually see it. In realistic operation, this will serve as an unseen head shunt, allowing the loco to pull forward before running around to the other end of the carriages. In reality, it also gives me the option of watching a train merrily pootling around without me needing to control it. It's the best of both worlds, really. The other main addition is a set of points at Backwoods station, giving me access to a fiddle yard. This means I can queue up various different trains and have them enter and leave the layout, giving me much more scope for creative operation. The original Primrose Line was served pretty much exclusively by small prairie locomotives, which suits me just fine because I love those. But by imagining Frontington-on-Sea to be adding a little more traffic to the line, we might be able to justify some other visiting locos too. Maybe a pannier tank with an autocoach. Possibly even a mogul or a Collet Goods with a longer passenger train at the height of a busy summer holiday. And there's scope for a little mixed goods traffic too. I've planned out the baseboard too, just so I know how I'm going to construct this thing. Instead of that 10mm polystyrene on top of 12mm chipboard, I'll go down the conventional route of 9mm ply, on a strong but lightweight supporting frame. I'm also planning on fixing the boards to the frame in a particular way so that I can easily remove them if I need to do work on the far side. Electrically, I'll finally be going digital. The plan is to use DCC++EX on an Arduino for a cheap but customizable setup. Points will be thrown using servos, possibly using something like the Megapoints servo controller. And if budget allows, I'll use those lovely DAP-hole motorised signals too. Budget is going to be a significant consideration though. My current layout had an initial helping hand by inheriting a truckload of second-hand track and a decent controller. But even so, it's taken several years to reach this point because of a strictly limited budget. That's unlikely to change anytime soon, so I'm going to have to do a lot of saving to create this new layout. I want to do it properly, and that means investing in it. Just don't expect weekly update videos. So that's the plan. It may seem like there's no actual progress, but this does actually represent a lot of thinking and poring over maps and researching materials and learning how to use CAD software and learning how to pronounce Orton Gifford and discussing intricate details about point work on Facebook. If you're one of the people I've chatted to, or indeed one of the many YouTube creators I've taken inspiration from, thank you. If you have suggestions or feedback about the plan for Frontington version 2, I'd love to hear them. Leave a comment below. That's all for now. Hopefully you'll begin to see some of this come to fruition over the next year, so do stay tuned. Subscribe if you haven't already, and you can find Frontington on Facebook too. Bye for now.